Let's go Ravens! Something big is quietly building inside Baltimore, and if you're paying attention, you can feel it. Moves are being studied, decisions are lining up, and there's a real chance this team is about to take a major step forward when nobody expects it. But the real question is, are the Ravens closer to a Super Bowl run than people think, or are there still hidden flaws that could hold them back? Before we dive into everything I'm hearing, make sure you hit that like button if you truly believe in this team's potential this season, and drop a comment saying, I believe in this Ravens team, if you're riding with Baltimore all the way this year. Now let's get straight into what's coming out from league sources and national media, because one name is starting to generate real buzz as a potential fit in Baltimore, Joel Bitonio. According to reports, the veteran offensive guard is being linked as a possible addition for the Ravens, and when you actually break it down, this move makes a lot more sense than it might seem at first glance. Bitonio has spent his entire career in Cleveland, and even though he may have lost a step compared to his prime years, the production is still there where it matters most. We're talking about a player who allowed just 2 sacks in 2025 and posted a 75.7 pass blocking grade, ranking among the top guards in the entire league. And here's where things get really interesting for Baltimore. This offensive line still carries a lot of uncertainty, especially on the interior. While there's confidence in the tackle positions, the guard and center spots remain question marks. Bringing in someone like Bitonio wouldn't just be about adding a starter, it would be about adding insurance, stability, and experience to a unit that simply cannot afford inconsistency if this team wants to compete at the highest level. Think about the scenario. If younger players don't develop as expected, or if injuries start to pile up, having a veteran like Bitonio ready to step in could completely change the trajectory of the offensive line. And let's not forget who he'd be protecting, Lamar Jackson, and opening lanes for Derrick Henry. That alone adds a completely different layer of appeal to this potential move. Now, there's also the financial side of this. The expectation is that he wouldn't come at a high cost, which is exactly what Baltimore needs right now. A low-risk, high-value addition that gives you flexibility and depth. That's the kind of move championship-caliber teams make quietly during the offseason. But that's not the only thing making waves right now. A full 7-round mock draft has also surfaced, giving us a glimpse into how analysts believe the Ravens could approach this upcoming draft. And right away, the focus is clear, reinforcing both the defensive front and the offensive interior. With the first-round pick, the projection is an edge rusher out of Miami, a player known for his relentless motor and ability to impact both the run and pass game. There's some concern about his age. He'll be 25 entering the league, but for a team like Baltimore, that might not be a deal-breaker. In fact, it could mean getting a more polished, ready-to-contribute player immediately. Then things shift heavily toward the offensive line in rounds 2 and 3, with multiple interior linemen being selected. That tells you everything about how urgent this need is. If the Ravens don't address it in free agency, they are almost guaranteed to invest significant draft capital into fixing it. And it doesn't stop there. Later rounds bring in depth at wide receiver, tight end, defensive line, and even running back, because like it or not, the team has to start thinking about the future beyond Derrick Henry. As dominant as he's been, time catches up with every player eventually, and planning ahead is not optional, it's necessary. Continuing from everything we just broke down, this is where things start to get even more intriguing for the Ravens, because it's not just about building the roster, it's also about identity. And that identity might be getting a visual transformation very soon. There's growing buzz around the organization after the announcement that new uniforms will officially be unveiled on April 16th. And if you've been following the discussions closely, you already know this isn't just a minor tweak. There are some real hints that Baltimore could be introducing a fresh look that still respects the franchise's tradition. Now, before anyone starts worrying about a complete overhaul, here's what we're hearing. The core elements are expected to remain intact. No changes to the primary logo, no changes to the helmet design as the main standard, and no brand new color schemes. Purple, black, and white are still the foundation. But where things get interesting is in the details. There's strong speculation about the introduction of iridescent accents, those reflective, almost color-shifting materials that we've seen other teams experiment with recently. And if done right, that could give the Ravens a more modern, aggressive edge without losing their identity. On top of that, there are design elements being discussed that could incorporate wings and talons into the uniform aesthetics. That's something that ties directly into the Ravens' branding in a subtle but powerful way. Instead of being loud or gimmicky, it could add texture and symbolism to the uniform, something fans can appreciate the more they look at it. Another detail that's getting attention is the possibility of a Baltimore wordmark appearing on at least one of the uniforms instead of Ravens. That might seem like a small change, but it actually shifts the focus toward representing the city itself, not just the team name. And for a fan base as passionate and connected as Baltimore's, that could hit differently. Now, of course, social media is already flooded with concept designs. Some of them look incredible, especially the ones featuring bold number fonts and subtle red accents. Others, not so much. There are designs floating around that go way too far with reflective helmets or overly flashy elements that just don't feel like Ravens football. And that's really the balance the organization has to strike here. You want something new, something exciting, but it still has to feel like Baltimore. Tough, physical, no nonsense. A uniform that reflects the way this team plays. Because let's be honest, this isn't just about aesthetics. This is about signaling a new era. A team that's retooling its offensive line, exploring smart veteran additions, investing in the draft, and now potentially redefining its look heading into the future. Everything is connected, and as fans, you can feel that something is building here. There's a sense that the Ravens are not standing still. They're adjusting, evolving, and preparing to take another serious shot at the top. So now it all comes together. Roster moves, draft strategy, team identity, even the uniforms. This offseason isn't just about small tweaks, it's about setting the tone for what comes next. And this is exactly where the conversation starts to shift from speculation to expectation, because when you connect all the dots, it's clear the Ravens are not approaching this offseason casually. They're being deliberate about every single move. You look at the offensive line situation, the possible addition of a veteran like Joel Bitonio, and then you look at how heavily the mock draft leans into fixing that same area, and it tells you one thing. The Ravens know this is the foundation of everything they want to do in 2026. Because let's be real, this team's ceiling is directly tied to how well they protect Lamar Jackson and how effectively they can establish the run game. You can have all the talent in the world at the skill positions, but if the interior offensive line struggles, everything collapses. Drives stall, pressure builds, and suddenly you're not playing Ravens football anymore. And that's why the idea of layering solutions becomes so important. You don't just rely on a rookie. You don't just rely on a free agent. You create competition. You create depth. You create a system where the best players rise. And if someone isn't ready, you're not scrambling mid-season trying to fix it. That's what separates good teams from great ones. Now, shifting back to the draft conversation for a moment, one of the most underrated aspects of that projection is how balanced it is. Yes, there's a clear emphasis on the trenches, but you're also quietly adding weapons and depth across the roster. A wide receiver with upside, multiple tight ends in a deep class, a defensive tackle with familiarity under the coaching staff, even a late-round quarterback and a potential punter option. These are the kinds of moves that don't always make headlines, but they fill out a roster in a way that matters over a full season. And then there's the running back situation. This is one of those topics that fans don't always want to confront, but it's necessary. Derrick Henry is still a force, no question about it. But the reality is simple. The Ravens need to start preparing for what comes next. Not replacing him today, but building behind him so that when the time comes, the transition isn't a crisis. That's why a pick like Nick Singleton in the mid to late rounds makes so much sense. You're not asking him to carry the load immediately. You're developing him, integrating him, and giving yourself options. Because again, it all comes back to sustainability. And when you combine that long-term planning with the potential visual reset we talked about with the uniforms, it really does feel like the Ravens are entering a new chapter. One that still respects the identity that got them here, but isn't afraid to evolve. A tougher offensive line, smarter depth, strategic drafting, a refreshed look. This is how contenders reload. So as everything continues to unfold, from free agency decisions to draft night to that uniform reveal on April 16th, you can feel the anticipation building.